I'm Jamie J. Hello. Hi there. Executive Director of First Person Arts. And I have the great privilege of introducing our author for tonight, R. Eric Thomas. So, I promise I won't talk long because you're here to see Eric and not me, which, I just don't understand that at all. But tonight, I want to tell you that Eric is an amazing person, which I know you all know. What you may not know is that Eric I'd like to take credit for his Philadelphia stage debut at a first-person art story slam. Right. A decade ago. And 10 years ago, he got on our stages for a slam called Do It Yourself. And he said, I'm 28 years old. Yes, I called out your age. He said, I'm 28 years old, and I never finish anything. I'll never write a book. A decade ago, he said that. And so I'm not reading his bio. I'm just going to tell you what you already know. He's a fantastic playwright. He is a writer, senior staff writer for Elle.com. He's written for the New York Times. What else? Oh, longtime host for the Moth StorySlams. Yeah. In Philadelphia and in DC. He's been host of First Person Art Story Slams. Work with me, people. And he is an incredible author now. He may have been born in Baltimore, but he belongs to Philadelphia. Ladies and gentlemen, R. Eric Thomas.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hello. Oh my God. All right. Good night. This was wonderful. How do I get out of here? This is amazing. I'm going to try and get my wits back about me. I'm so grateful that you're all here. Like Jamie J said, I got my start here in Philly telling stories at Moth First Person Art Story Slams. And brand loyalty. I remember the first story I told, and I tell this in the TEDx talk. I'm just going to drop that name real quick that I did. That the first time I told a story, I stood on stage at Latage and I told the truth about what was going on in my life. And people leaned forward and they listened and they laughed when it was appropriate and they looked stricken when it was appropriate. And I felt this conduit open up between myself and this room full of strangers, and I was shocked by that. I was shocked that I could say anything that mattered. And one of the things that I really just loved about the process of writing memoir is that I get to relive that over again. Because when I pitched this to my team at Random House, I was like, it's just essays, just some essays, just me writing stories about things that happen. And they're like, it's a memoir. And I was like, boo, no. I don't think so. I was like, no, because I was like, you don't understand, Madam Random, Mr. House. You don't understand that with memoirs, you climb a mountain and you fight a tiger and you're Michelle Obama and I'm only one of those things and so I was like, and they're like, no, a memoir is you remembering things and putting it on a paper, and I was like, brrr. So then I went to the zoo and I started picking fights with the tiger. And that went not well. But what I learned is that the idea that you should tell your story continues to be true, whether you're standing on the stage at Latage or World Cafe Live, or you're sitting in a coffee shop in Baltimore writing what might become a book one day. And that's I'm really grateful for that. So I'm going to do. I asked them, eventually I will get to the book. You're like, we came here for a book, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. there are no books here this evening. When I asked, they were like, what, I was like, what do I do at a book reading? I go to book readings all the time, and they're like, well, what do people do at the book readings? And I was like, well, as I recall, they read the book, and they're like, you should do that. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. I was like, what if I did some close-up magic? And they're like, no, just read the words you wrote in the book. I was like, in this book? So I'm going to read to you from The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. It's really good, actually. I like The Dutch House. Ooh, but I'm so mad at Andrea. Oh, my goodness. That's an inside joke for people who have read The Dutch House. Niche. Oh, my Lord. Oh, man. Yeah, but like I said, these all started as stories. And they're stories that I told on stage, and they're stories that I told at dinners, and they're stories I told on many unsuccessful first dates here in this city, and one very successful first date here in this city. And that's the thing, like they all connect, I think, hopefully, to larger ideas about personhood, about being and becoming and otherness. And, they follow sort of three general tracks, and they converge a lot. They're about my identity as they're about identity, and so they're about my identity as a black person, and as a gay person, and as a Christian person, and the ways that those identities intersect, and sometimes come into conflict with each other, and sometimes create something beautiful and new together. So I'm going to read for you a couple of selections that follow a couple of those tracks, yeah. I'm like, they are expecting something else. They're like, no, the book, Eric, the book, this book. I was 4 when I met the Dutch House. I'm just kidding. Is Anne Patchett here? No, I'm just kidding. All right, this is from an essay called Unsuccessful Black Hair. Lost my page. I'm currently bald. I say currently because I'm holding out for medical science. Yes, I have heard of Rogaine. No, I don't. Haven't tried it. I don't want my hair back. I want to take a pill and get John Legend's hair. I know what you're thinking. Have I been sleeping on John Legend's hair? Is it extraordinary? No, it's fine. It's very nice hair. It looks good all the time without being showy about it. I'm not asking for a crown of glory. I just want nice, unremarkable, full head of hair that does its job competently and attractively, like the third lead on a crime procedural. Other people seem to notice my baldness more than me, which makes sense because I'm incredibly humble and never look in the mirror. Also, I kind of just don't care. But it's still a surprise to me when little kids draw me as a round-faced bald man. Are little kids drawing me a lot? Why, yes, they are, thank you. I'm a kindergarten art model. I look at these drawings and I see Gordon from Sesame Street. Or Steve Harvey. But never myself. I suppose I don't know what I look like, or maybe I'm just waiting to memorize my look after I get my John Legend treatment. My hair, when I had hair, was no great shakes. I didn't really have a plan for my hair. I was too shy to try most fun hairstyles, and it felt like when it was just cut normally, it didn't have any of the verve, sheen, or glow of other people's styles. I now realize it's because I wasn't putting any product in it. Products with names like verve, sheen, and glow. Most of the time I don't think about my hair, which in and of itself is like a dereliction of my duty as a black person. Got a brief note here. The original draft of this essay, the word dereliction was actually hereliction. And my editor was like, absolutely not! The track changes reached through my computer screen and slapped me across the face. How dare you? I should keep track of time, I don't know. What time? Oh, okay, thank you so much, good night. Yeah, it's a dereliction of my duty as a black person. Hair is integral to cultural blackness. How we do our hair, what products are available to us, whether we let white people touch it, we don't. And the messaging we receive from non-black people about our hair, it's all part of the experience. I know this. I'm sometimes affected by it, but I find it hard to internalize. I'm proud to be black, but I've never been able to harness pride about my hair. I just don't really connect with it, or the lack thereof. Baldness is a legitimate black hair choice too. Why don't I just make Taye Diggs my hair idol and keep it moving? Do I look like Taye Diggs? No. But has the tyranny of facts ever stopped me before? Again, no. One year for Halloween, this is true, I went as if, yeah, this one part of the book is true. Yeah. 287 pages of fiction and one fact. And that fact is, one year for Halloween, I went as Kanye West, sort of. This was a long time ago. It was less problematic. Anyway, I wore sunglasses and a sports coat because I'm the laziest Halloween dresser known to man. Did my bald ass look like Kanye West? No. Somebody asked me if I was Lex Luthor. This is hilarious to me because this person was obviously costume colorblind and very woke. But still, let's not be ridiculous about this. You see my bald ass walking down the street on Halloween wearing a suit. You don't think, hey, that's Lex Luthor. I can tell from the context clues. You also don't think, hey, that's Kanye West. More likely, you think, that guy is dressed as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Or, most likely, why is that bald man going to a job interview at 8 p.m. on Halloween night? And why does the suit have shorts? The suit has shorts because I'm dressed up as sexy Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, also known as Lex Luthor Vandross. Lex Luthor Vandross is my favorite joke that's not true. My favorite joke in the book involves the N-word, but I can't say that right now. But Lex Luthor Vandross, I was like, if you cut this, I will destroy my whole book deal. I totally will. What was I going to say? Oh, so about a week ago, before the book tour started, I decided to go get my beard cut at a barbershop. And this chapter talks a lot about barbers and black barbershops and this place where this nexus of blackness and masculinity comes together, and how a lot of times I feel like I walk in there and I'm like, I don't know the rules of this space and I'm not black enough. Hey-ya! And so I went, and I was like, I'm going to be seen in public. You should trim up your beard or whatever. So I go, and it's a great experience. The guy, he's halfway through a Subway sandwich, and he finishes the sub. Oh my God, I love barbershops so much. And he takes his oniony hands, and he starts to shave my beard. And I was like, oh, yes, Mother Africa, here I come. And so I'm like, but it's almost over, and it was done, and I pay him in cash, and I turn to go, and then there's two other barbers in the shop, and they're joshing with each other, and then the one turns, they're talking about something, I can't really tell what they're talking about, and then one of them turns to me, and it's like, hey, and I was like, burr, burr. And he's like, brother, what's the best hot sauce? Which is the blackest question you can possibly ask. And I was just like, a trap, a test. Because you don't expect to have a black test on the middle of a Monday. It was President's Day. And so I was just and I'm in my mind, I don't really use hot sauce. And so I was just like, oh, I don't know. And then I was like, well, my husband uses hot sauce. Maybe I should text him, phone a friend. But he's white, so is that problematic? I don't know. So then I was like, just think of a hot sauce. And I was like, Frank's? And he's like, see, this guy thinks Crystal's is the best hot sauce. And I was like, oh, now we have a common enemy. I was like, mock him, Crystals, ha ha ha. So I don't know. The book is a lot of times in life, I think you find yourself in these spaces where you're like, I think I belong here, but then all of a sudden there's a test, which is why I have started carrying hot sauce in my bag. This is true. Yeah, prop comedy is what we're doing today. Now, I've been bringing this bag around me on different tour stops, like Mary Poppins, because I on some of the early stops, I was throwing confetti on the front of the cover of the book, and everyone was like, "You have to stop this right now," But then I would carry a dustbuster inside, and then I would dust bust it up, and everyone was like, we came here so you read a book. So I'm gonna do that again. A lot of times, when you are, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna read it. I'm like, I wrote an introduction to this piece, but instead of reading that, which was vetted by many professionals, I'm just going to speak extemporaneously. This is about my time at Columbia, and to student affairs deans. The office had two deans with whom I was obsessed, a man named Ron and a woman named Kenya. I've only had a handful of black teachers or administrators in my life, and I remember them all with a truly terrifying level of detail. I would encounter a black person in a position of intellectual or cultural authority, and I would perform a full body scan like I was a 3D printer or a TSA agent. I wanted to memorize these people. Kenya moved through the world with a level of authority and command that laid me all the way out. She would stride into the office, give me a pleasant greeting, and then move on to whatever was pressing, and I would actually get lightheaded like I was a teenager seeing the Beatles. Kenya was also the first person I ever encountered who carried hot sauce in her purse. She was full-time black. Problematic. Once, she was headed off to some fancy Columbia dinner with, Yo-Yo Ma and Maya Angelou, and she stopped in the doorway of her office to ensure that her little bottle of Frank's was in her bag. I literally said aloud, "That is the blackest thing I have ever seen in my entire life." Kenya was definitely somebody who wouldn't even think of allowing hateration in a dancery. She was erudite and kind and intelligent and clearly making paper and also black as hell, and I was shook. Ron's presence was an equally stunning force in my life, though he worked with students more closely and he had a more casual relationship with us. Kenya was like Mount Rushmore, and Ron was like the park ranger who led a guided tour. He had a level of accessibility and a beguiling version of masculinity that was completely foreign to me. Little details about him, his sense of humor, his aesthetic, his excellent ability to roll his eyes, his very moisturized skin glimmered and glinted like light on sequins. Ron felt so safe. The importance and the rarity of that in a time when I felt constantly at risk in my racial understanding of myself and my acceptance of my sexual orientation can't be overstated. I was obsessed with the two of them, with their takes on blackness. I wish that essay could just be all about Ron and Kenya. It's not. It's an essay about finding myself getting more and more disoriented at college as I, as a play on words, discovered my sexual orientation. So disorient, as you see this, and then you put it in front of orientation. Yes, that is why I'm a writer. I thought it was real clever. No, but I wish it could just be about the two of them because I was so obsessed with them, and I find it really interesting to think back their presence and the huge effect that they had on my life. And I wonder, I haven't contacted them since, but I wonder if they know that. But I think it's also really important to mark those places in life where people have shifted your path or stood between yourself and imminent danger, or helped you understand a little bit more about some part of yourself, and just mark that and say, this person was important, and maybe they know it and maybe they don't. A lot of those people for me are teachers. A lot of those people are also friends. A lot of those people are in this room tonight. So it's like it really, I highly recommend writing a memoir because every time you go to a bookstore stop, it's like you're like going to your funeral, to be honest, and it's like, well, this is fun. I can't wait. The other thing, so marketing, put it in my calendar, I guess. And I'm going to read, I'll read one more, and then we're going to do a little thing, and then we'll open it up for questions. I do want to say, a lot of you got fans tonight, and one of the reasons that, yay, and I want to take a pictures later on, if you so are inclined. If not, you can, or something, I don't know. But yeah, when the publisher was like, what kind of swag do you want? And I was like, they were like, do you want bookmarks or, book plates or whatever? And I was like, they said book plates, and I thought charger plates, and I was like, ooh, okay. Deranged. I'm actually banned from the Random House building. I come in, they're like, just take these books and go. But I was like, church fans, because faith is a major part of this book, and also a specific black church is really important part of this book. And so I was like, I want a church fan. I want a church fan that has a picture of Barack Obama on the front and an ad for a funeral home on the back. Right? That's what I wanted. And they were like, well, it should mention your book somewhere. And I was like, no. What they do, they go to the funeral home and then they get the book there. All right? It's a scavenger hunt. Mrs. Baisley Frankwheeler, you understand. And they're like, no, it has to advertise your book. And I was like, okay, but there has to be a funeral home somewhere. But it's also I feel like that, I couldn't think of anything that more perfectly encapsulated what I was trying to do with this book. I wanted, we went through a lot of different versions of the cover, and I'm really glad that Rachel Akey, who designed this cover, was patient with me and eventually came upon this design. This is not my hand, I have to confess. This is a hand model. And I don't know who this person is. I wanted to audition, but they did not ask me. Oh my gosh, one time, a couple years ago, the Wilma was doing this show where the description for the part was a black playwright, should be a local black playwright. And so I was like, this is my moment. I roll in there, I read something, and they were like, well, you certainly said words. And I was like, I sure did. See you on opening night? Anyway, James Imes obviously got the part. Between me and James Imes, you're going to cast James Imes. Anyway. Oh, man. Anyway, no, the hand. What am I talking about? Oh, my gosh, this is therapy. No, but I wanted, we tried to figure out how to capture this idea of, joy in the face of disaster. This idea of I sent them the picture book, The Parade by Ezra Jack Keats, and one of the last pages is just somebody, just sort of a little kid, I think, walking down this empty street after a parade, and there's confetti on the ground, and I was like, that's the energy, there's been joy here, and maybe there's joy again, but right now there's work to do, and that's the way I feel sort of about the world, and I feel sometimes about life, and I really am glad that we didn't go with a dirty street full of confetti. May not have sold as well, but I like this. I really, really love this. Whoever this stranger is, I hope he's having a good day. But I wanted something that spoke to exuberance and spoke to a different version of masculinity that was just overflowing with joy. And I don't know. People were like, are you throwing the confetti? Are you catching it? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting at home not being called in for the callback. But either way, whether you're sort of receiving this blessing like it's Pride Parade Pentecost, or whether you're tossing it out like it's the wedding of the world, that's the energy I wanted. I also wanted something, and this is the last reading, and then we're going to do, as the preachers say, I'll close with this, and then we'll have I'm going to do a little bit because everybody loves bits. Welcome to my final book tour. And then we'll have, if you have questions, and if you don't have questions, I will perform most of the first act of Little Shop of Horrors. One of the other things I thought about when writing this book is the idea that, I hope that people buy it. I hope if you haven't bought it, you buy it soon. But I also know for sure that, and I've seen on Instagram, and I haven't yet seen in person, but I hope to soon, that it'll be wrapped in plastic and have a little white sticker across its spine with a number on it, and it'll sit in shelves around the country, and that people will find it tomorrow or 10 years from now, and that person may be someone who's just like me, or someone who's not yet born, or someone who is older than I am now. And I love that, because that's how I discovered the world, and through books, through libraries, that's how I discovered that I could belong in the world. And that's deeply, deeply important to me. My parents would take us to the library every week, and they would let us borrow as many books as the library would allow, which was 40. And then as I got older, I would go to the library myself. And it was a sanctuary, and it was a space of endless possibility. And there's so many ways I feel that there are different forces in the world will tell you that there are no possibilities for you, or there are limited possibilities. Your outcomes aren't great, you know, because of your zip code, your race, your sexual orientation, your gender, your life. And the fact that I could walk into this space and open up a book and discover characters who were living lives that were just like mine, and characters who were so drastically different from mine, and know that like they promised an escape, but they also promised an alternate way out, another universe. So I'm going to read this a little bit about libraries, and then we will continue. Then I'll pass the offering plate. So this references Park, which is a school I went to, the K through 12. Park's school library, like many libraries, uses the Dewey Decimal System for categorizing and filing books. As a lifelong library goer, I'd always been captivated by the numbers on the spine of every book. I love that every possible thing, every story, every fact, everything in the universe of knowledge could be classified. I love that by understanding the Dewey Decimal System, even at a rudimentary level, I gained access to an ever-deepening world of information. Knowing what the 10 divisions in the system were and what many of the divisions' subcategories were made what was often overwhelming and mysterious suddenly comprehensible. A library looks like endless possibility in this way, rather than rows of closed covers. A library is a universe of smaller universes contained within pages. And to me, the Dewey Decimal System was the key. One of the fascinating things about the Dewey Decimal System is that while there are distinct categories for every subject imaginable, it also allows for internal referencing, acknowledging that while a book may be about one subject and exist in one place, it also has a corollary placement elsewhere at the same time, and that's okay. I understood that a book could be many things at once, and without conflict or contradiction, long before I realized that about people, or at least long before I admitted it. Years later, I would learn about the work of Dorothy Porter, the Howard University librarian who devised her own system of classification for library materials. In the 1930s, she began building a collection of books by Black writers and volumes on Black and African history that would eventually become the Howard's Moreland Spingarn Research Center. At its inception, it was an anomaly. In 1995, she told the Washington Post, "When I started building the collection, nobody was writing about Black history. You couldn't find any books." As her collection grew, it became apparent that Dewey reified some of the structural inequities that kept Black history out of books and Black books off of shelves. In Dewey, she said, they had one number, 326, that meant slavery, and they had another number, 325, that meant colonization. The result, she explained, was that many libraries were reaffirming a Eurocentric mindset by filling any and everything about Black life under these two categories. Porter's system, like Dewey, classified work by genre and subject, but included Black authors and Black history in every area. When I first learned about the Dewey Decimal System, I assumed it was an impartial way of defining and filing the breadth of knowledge available, knowable information. I came to understand that the intention of the filer and the perspective that they carry play a huge role in how Dewey and any other system is employed. And I think about that a lot because, you know, the intention of the filer, metaphorically and actually, like, is hugely important and can affect the way that we see ourselves. And so I'm really grateful that I spent my life in libraries, this library in particular, the Broad and Moore, maybe, branch of the library? South Philly? Sorry. Well, yes, that's where it is. Yeah, I was like, what's the name of it? South Philly? No, it's Broad and Moore, I think. It's across, that's the name of the branch is across the street from Eric's house. The Enoch Pratt Free Library System in Philly, the Columbia University College Library, I was really grateful that, like, I found myself in all of the genres, in all the different classifications. So, and that feels like justice, and that feels like possibility. Another thing that I think of as justice is getting things for free. So, a transition that was not successful. So real quick story. So years ago, every stop I'm doing this little game show about pop culture where I'm going to ask two people to come up and answer questions about pop culture. It's 5 questions, and they're too hard. When I was a little kid, the background of this is when I was a little kid, they took Lassie off of the air on the public television station in Baltimore, and I was furious. And so I wrote, my parents encouraged us to like speak truth to power. And they were like, maybe write a letter to Elijah Cummings if you need something. And I was like, I'm going to write to them to turn Lassie back on. And they were like, okay, that sounds good. And I was like 6 years old, so I wrote on that like blue and white paper with the huge lines you get in kindergarten, and I wrote them a letter, and I waited, and nothing happened. But eventually I got a letter back from the president of Maryland Public Television, Raymond Ho. I still remember his name, and one day, if he's here tonight, we need to speak, sir. And he was like, thank you so much for your letter, you're adorable. No. But here's some swag. And it was my first opportunity to get swag, which is much better, I think. And one of the items was a mug that they were giving away as part of their pledge drive, and it's like a Mickey and Minnie on a mug driving into the sunset. And I still have that mug because I am a small hoarder, and also because when I drink from it, I taste justice. So the prize tonight is not that mug, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, sorry. What I'm saying is I'm not going to give you my mug because I don't believe in justice. But my really good friend, Melissa Koenig, believes in justice, and she made custom mugs for the book that are flecked like confetti, and she fired them herself. And so I am giving out one of these custom mugs by Melissa Koenig Ceramics. So if there's 2 people who would like, okay, you right there, so your hand, and oh yes, you come on up. Yes. I'm gonna do a real quick costume check. This is still a book talk. All right, come on to the middle of the stage. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello. All right. Got my questions here. These are too hard. What are your names? Hello.
Kate.
Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hey, I'm Donkey.
Donkey, hello. How are you? I like how I say hello, how are you, and I don't give the mic back. That's my thing. Okay, so raise your hand to answer. If you can't answer, then if neither person can answer, then you can like just poll the audience, and we'll just move through this quickly because who knows what's going to happen. First question. In the cinematic classic Knives Out, Chris Evans wears a white sweater so good-looking that he could walk in here and punch me directly in the face. What is the name of the group of islands that give the style of sweater its name?
Scottish Isles. Oh, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Fair Isles.
What did you say?
Fair Isles.
I'm sorry, that is not correct. These are too hard. Nobody likes this. Aaron. 1 point for Kate. The television show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood stars Lady Elaine Fairchild, who we all need to agree is a gay icon. Lady Elaine is the king's sister. What is the king's name? Oh, I know. Peas and carrots, peas and carrots, peas and carrots. Well, no. Yes, there we go. Friday. 1 point for Donkey. It is tied up. And, that one's too hard. Oh, King Friday the 13th. King Friday the 13th. Okay, yeah. Okay. Do we care? I don't think so. Okay, our final question is, yes. Which movie should Amy Adams have won her Oscar for?
The House Bunny.
The House Bunny. Interesting. Kate, would you like to steal? Do you have another answer?
Whoa, my God, this is, crazy. Amy Adams. It's gonna be... So many. What? All of them? That's not...
Sure, we'll take that. The space one was Arrival.
Arrival.
Now here's the thing, when you play that game, then you have to take an Oscar away from someone else, and that it becomes the chaos theory. I spend all day doing this. All right, so I guess now that yeah, okay, great.
In your book, you write that you're a person who doesn't like to meet people he hasn't met before. So how's that going for you?
Well, my therapist told me, he was like, challenge yourself. And I was like, what if I just meet 5,000 people in a year? No, I do write that, don't I? It's so funny. Sometimes people will quote things to me. I was at the library in Baltimore, and this woman said something, the woman who was introducing me said something about like how I write about the space between terror and magic. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. And I kept bringing it up, and she was like, afterwards, she was like, you wrote that. That's in your book. I haven't read it in a long time. Here's the thing. I love, okay, this is the earnest answer. One of the reasons that I wrote a book, one of the reasons that I love writing my column for Elle.com is that it feels like I am able to have a different relationship with the world at large, where I'm not speaking to a bunch of strangers, where we are sitting around a table and we're telling stories and telling jokes. And that's all I want. That's all I want from the world. And so, I spent so much of life walking through the world feeling that I was surrounded by strangers. And I don't want that. And so I put all my business in the street in the form of a book to make people be my friends.
My question is, when you're traveling other places or with people on this book tour or visiting other places, when you talk about Philadelphia, where do you recommend that people go when they come to Philly? What are your top 3 or 4 places you tell them to go?
That's a hot sauce question. You're going to get me canceled, Betsy. Things were going so well, and then I was like, Geno's? Oh, no. I don't know. Here's the thing. I always, there's such a flood of, choices, so I always sort of try and narrow it down. I'm like, look, the food scene is incredible. So, and I've worked at Pod, and I've worked at the Hard Rock Cafe, and I like them both. And I also like these small places on Passyunk Avenue, and then I say, the theater scene, and I rattle off 19 theaters. And then I talk about the art museum, and I talk about the library. I literally mentioned the real answer, I just remembered, is Tavern on Camac. Thank you. I'm over here I love everything. I'm the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I'm like, actually, go to Tavern. I wrote a whole play about Tavern on Camac. I love Tavern. All right. Any other questions? Is that just when I hear about Tavern on Camac?
My daughter would like to know where you got your sparkly pink jacket.
Oh. Well, I will gladly lend it to you anytime. I got it in Provincetown, Rhode Island, where I like to go on vacation. And it's a space where I feel like I can breathe a little bit easier and where I feel so free. And one of the, I guess feel free enough to buy a very hot jacket in August. I bought 2 of these. I have a blue one also. And I literally was like, I'll wear these on the book tour. And then I put them on. I was like, I'll wear this for 5 minutes on the book tour. But you can try it on afterwards if you like.
Per The Hollywood Reporter, Chris Evans is in negotiation to portray the dentist in Little Shop of Horrors. Thoughts? Feelings?
Well, oh, man. I gotta tell you, this new movie version of, oh no, I'm stuck to myself, of The Little Shop of Horrors is taking me through it. I don't need it. Chris Evans is supposed to play the dentist. I think he's too hot. His father is a dentist. I don't think that matters. Cancel me if you must. He's very funny. He's very good. He wants to. I want to also. Is anyone calling me? Here's what they need to do in Hollywood, okay? Is when they were trying to cast the part, think, does Eric Thomas want it? If I don't, then go to Chris Evans. That's a tip. Thank you for that question. I deeply appreciate that. Scarlett Johansson is supposed to play. I can't. I'll probably love it.
Eric, I was just wondering, I loved your plays. Are you writing plays at all?
I am. Can you believe? Let me tell you how deranged I am. So I moved to Baltimore, and like right around the same time I got the book deal. So I wrote this book over the course of 9 months, and I wrote 2 new plays at the same time, and my daily columns. One play just closed in Baltimore. It was a play called Safe Space. I'm submitting it around. And the other play, a play called Nightbird. Oh my God! I just want to thank everybody here for playing the album you were listening to before I came out was called Nightbirds by LaBelle, and I think it's the best album that's ever been written. And the play is sort of inspired by that album. Anyway, and then I don't think I can say any more than this, but I will have a play running in Philadelphia next year.
Okay, well, I have a question to you. Oh, I wish it could be funnier, but maybe I'll just be like, you can make it funny. So the world's shitty.
I've heard. I read today. I didn't know.
It's pandemic. And how do you situate yourself like as a comedian within that? What's your feeling on like things are so to make things light or to make things heavy or to spin things that are heavy to make them light or just sort of what is your sense framework as like comedy as an intervention?
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate that question, and I think about it a lot. I think the first thing is there's a lot of things that I know there's things that I'm like I could make a joke about this, but I just think this is too serious, and so there's things that I'll stay away from. I don't know that you if you see a column come out about the coronavirus, send help to my house. I think that might go over poorly, and I think I would feel badly about that later on. And I'm just trying to live in good karma. But one of the things I think about, like when you watch a sitcom, if they remove the laugh track, you just see people tell a joke and then they stand there for a couple of seconds. And these people, in a sitcom, in a comedy, aren't necessarily having a great time. They're usually like, you drank the last of the milk, and Rachel went to London, or whatever happened. I don't remember. And so I think of that like metaphorically, and like I'm really stretching it, but I do think like that comedy is this moment where we can just sort of like sit. It really is for me like a mindfulness exercise where I'm like, okay, so I get so caught up in like spiraling. I spiral constantly, but there are moments where I'm able to sort of just stop and say, what is ridiculous about this one thing? And I think that is a really great way of also stopping a spiral. And so like I think there are plenty of things to be made fun of in this moment. I don't think the administration, I think they've run out of comic usefulness, to be honest. So fired, recast them. But I think that it allows the sort of like, I whip myself up into like, what if I get identity thefted? What if the oceans rise and I bought a beach house in Provincetown? What happens if I have to move to Mars and I have to terraform? I don't want to terraform! And so then when I sit and I say like this press conference was a disaster, or this fashion show looked like ridiculous, it allows me to sort of just stop. So I hope that, I don't know if that was, I don't know. You can grade me afterwards.
I'm curious if your experience of writing this book makes you want to write another one.
In this moment, like I woke up the day it came out last Tuesday, and I was like, I have to write another book? And like the answer is no, I don't have to write another book. Like I could just like fade away into obscurity. Oh no. No, this experience has been amazing. I think so. For me, there were two sides to it. There is the side that started, I guess, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, where I'm selling the book, and I sell a book all day, every day, and that's a little weird, But there's also the living it and the writing it. And so there's a part of me that's just like, I gotta get another book out of me. And I was like, oh, it took me 35 years to live this book. I don't think it'll take me 35 years to write my next book, but if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I love writing, and that's all I want to do. And I feel deeply, deeply grateful that I have an amazing team at Ballantine and that there's interest. I think one of the things that I'm going to do, my plan, I mean, I do, I say all this, and I have another book coming out in September. But I already wrote it. It's a biography of the Representative Maxine Waters that I co-wrote. So get ready for me to start selling you that one. No, I'm going to fix myself. But I do, one of the things I'm going to start, I'm going to do two things. I'm interested in writing a novel about a black family that is exploring national parks, because I'm interested in what belongs to us as people, as Americans, and as people of color, and so I'm going to go with some black people, my parents, to to some national parks, and I'm going to take it off my taxes, but it's really just a vacation, and so I'm going to work in the fiction space for a little bit, and then I don't know. I hope that one day something says to me like, "There's an essay here," and then we'll get back into it. But in the meantime, I guess I appreciate you reading my newsletter. The newsletter I started because I wasn't sure that anybody wanted to hear anything from me except for the column, And I was like, I don't talk at that register all the time, and so I was like, is there space for narrative? Is there space for sincerity? And so I appreciate you. I appreciate anybody who reads the newsletter and opens it. Very high open rate. Thank you very much. Because every Sunday, it reaffirms that there's space for me, and I appreciate that deeply.
So how Philadelphia is similar to Baltimore, but different. So what do you think is different about Philly and Baltimore? How are
you
they
all
different?
trying to get me canceled?
Which city's better?
I think a lot about Philadelphia and Baltimore. I think that Baltimore seems to me to be a city of bubbles. And the geography of Baltimore, I think, is hugely important because the city is a sort of square that, the bottom of the square sort of empties out into the Chesapeake Bay. And around it is a huge county. And so a lot of the wealth in Baltimore is in the county, and it's sort of, I think, acts as a leech, on the city. When I moved to Philadelphia, my image of Philadelphia was the opening credits to the movie Philadelphia, where Broad Street looks much, much different than it does now. I think that the bubbles in Philadelphia have, I think by virtue of the fact that there's valuable real estate in a lot of spaces that people want to be, and hopefully that's for the best, and sometimes it's not. I'm going to let you all hash it out, on your own. Like the Wiz at the end of the Wiz, I'm like, y'all got it. But I think there is, just by nature of the way that the city is laid out, you've got this major corridor, you can't abandon it, it's too valuable, And I wish that I want every civic leader, every person who lives in a city, particularly, I love cities, to like feel that way about their cities. It's too valuable. We're too valuable. But they don't. So I will not tell you which city is better.
So I saw you host many Moth StorySlams.
Yeah.
I know you saw many more than I did, probably than most people in this room. Were there any stories that really stuck with you, like that you find yourself coming back to?
Oh, man.
Later?
Oh.
I mean, it's a hard one. I'm sorry.
It's a really hard one.
I was thinking, and I couldn't remember stories that
yeah.
well. So
Like, I mean,
maybe
I
just
think
general.
there's so many. There's one woman who she gave like her Starbucks name to a date. You know, like you have like the name you just give at Starbucks, you know, or whatever, and to like a guy at the bar, and then they ended up dating for like 4 months or something. And so she just kept up the charade. And I love a scam. There was another one where a man was talking about, he was like researching a true crime thing. It's the most terrifying thing. And he told this story about like, there was a murder, and like I think a friend of his he discovered had murdered someone, and he was like researching it. And he gets off the stage, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And you know me, the Moth. I was like, y'all think that's true? I have no decorum. No, I didn't think I said that, but I think after the break, it was right before intermission, and we came back from the break, and I was like, yo, that was crazy. I don't know. Do you think that's true? And all these people held up their phones with the article on it. And so from my perspective, I just saw a sea of blue lights suddenly shouting, murder! So that was memorable.
I just saw Safe Space.
Oh, yay, thank you. Oh, my gosh. Thank you.
On a Sunday.
Oh, wow.
I think that was closing day.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
marvelous. And I think it's
you.
really clever the way you wove in all the stories and integrated the story with a historic property.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I was wondering if there are any other opportunities you think you might have or other people might have with integrating and reactivating historic properties and talking about all the layers of narratives that are actually present, even though more often than not we're talking about one story.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, who the guy who lived there. This was, for those who don't know, this was the summer home of Johns Hopkins himself.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting and clever.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming down to see it. Safe Space is a play about...
No, I live here.
Wait.
I live here in Philadelphia.
Oh, no, I mean coming down to see the play.
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
yeah.
I did.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's amazing. So really briefly, Safe Space is a play about a nonprofit that is bedeviled by the ghost of a formerly enslaved person, and it was performed in Clifton Mansion in Baltimore, which did enslave, which is a property that did enslave people, although they're always quick to point out that Johns Hopkins did not own any slaves. So he was one of the good ones. Everybody wants to remind me. Anyway, so I think when I lived in Philly, like time is on our side. I wrote about Tavern and about how people keep telling me that there was an underground railroad stop in the basement, and I would like to do that play in Tavern. I think a lot about. Call Steve Carlino. I think there's a lot of great opportunity. I'm always writing about place, I realize. I'm always writing about homes and the outside of homes and where we find home. So the company, Single Carrot, that did the play, they found the property. I hadn't written it as site-specific, but I am working actually with Theater Exile to do a piece that will be summer 2021, will be in a couple different Philly parks, and we're really working to have it grow from the soil up. We're working with a group from Mighty Writers, and we're working with a group from a senior center to get sort of authentic stories into this sort of time adventure where a bunch of South Philly residents fall out of time. So I'm really interested in continuing to write about place, because I learned that here. I learned that in Philly. So.
What kind of advice would you give a 16-year-old?
Oh, man. My first piece of advice would be come to a book reading by R. Eric Thomas. No, I don't know. I mean, are you a writer? So yes, you did that, which means yes. So My first advice is that you're a writer, and that you don't have to write a book or get published in a newspaper, or even let anybody see your writing to be a writer, if that's what you want to do. And it's more important that you're expressing yourself. My other advice, it's been a long time since I was 16, maybe like about 5 or 6 years, I think. But I don't know, I think that you shouldn't underestimate how hungry the world is to hear your perspective, and to hear your thoughts. But also, you're under no obligation to share your thoughts with anybody until you want to. So I don't know. I've never spoken to anyone younger than me before. So this is a pleasure, but also I feel like I'm failing at this. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And yeah.
Hate to shift the attention off of the book that we're talking about today, but since you mentioned it, I have to ask, could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Congresswoman Waters?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. We have brunch every Sunday. She calls, and I'm like, I'm busy. No, I mean, we have I don't know that we have we don't have an ongoing relationship. One of the things that I like so much about her is that she has the ability that a lot of politicians have to make you feel valued when you're in her presence. But I will say, one of the things that was most striking to me, I wrote about her a number of times in my column, and I write about people that I don't imagine I'll meet ever. Although now that it's started to happen, I'm trying to secret it. I read about the Knives Out sweater, and then they sent me a Knives Out sweater. Online media is a scam. Anyway, so she invited me to Washington, D.C. to be a part of a rally she was having at Busboys and Poets. This was a couple years ago. And she interviewed me at this rally. And I was like, these people are not here to see you, Representative Waters. Over the course of writing the book, we had to write the book very quickly. We wrote the book over the course of 6 months, which I do not recommend ever. So we did a lot of research using newspapers and public record, and I was able to speak to her prior to the beginning of the book. And then she called me right in the middle of it. But it's sort of, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, what's an interesting thing to say about this? I don't really have anything. So I got to work on that for September. Yeah, but I think she takes my calls. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone coming out.